Hi everyone, it's Niamh here. This is a class for the ATTC stampers creating collaged cards. So in this class we're going to create 2 pages at once, and you can do this the whole A4 sheet. I quite like using these as a bit of a matrix in the background, so I quite often do stuff like this in one complete sheet. However, if you want to cut them down to make them a little bit more manageable to the size that you want to begin with, you can certainly do that. So these I think are about 4 inches by 4 inches squares. I do like doing more than one at a time because it is a bit of a production line process. So I'm just starting off by tearing up some small pieces of collage papers. You can see it's sort of a range of different types, and whatever I stick on one side I'll stick on the other side. There's no real rhyme or reason to how I'm gluing it down. I'm just gluing it, I've got 3 pieces on there. I've got 3 different pieces, 2 on each side. I've used gel medium to glue them down both beneath and on top. That sort of gives it a seal and make sure that everything's nice and flat. Now this is an optional step, and you'll actually notice that in my final piece you really don't see this step, but what this does, this is syrup paint from Dina Wakley. It's just a really vintagey colour, and you can see by putting that on it sort of tones everything to the same colour. So it doesn't really matter what colour your ephemera is in the background, it tones everything to the same. You notice the patches around the outside of the glued down pieces where the gel medium has been are a little bit white because that's had a little bit of a resist happen. So while I do these processes, I tend to work in threes, pop my paint in 3 separate places. Now I'm using my finger to do this because I like the effect of it. You can certainly use a paintbrush. I'm starting off with some very light colours. So I started off with a sand or a carnation, which is a sort of apricot-y colour. Then I've got a light pink, and now I'm going in with more petrol blue colour called marine. You'll notice I'm overlapping the colours and I'm working them into each other while they are wet. I'm working quite quickly, and I'm only using a tiny little bit of paint. So less is more. It actually goes a really long way, and you still want to see some of that collage peeping through from underneath. So you can always add more paint. It's a little bit harder to take it off, so just go gently with it. Now I've chosen these colours because it's a favourite colour palette of mine. I would suggest you choose colours that you're comfortable with and you like. So not many people sort of like, people have strong opinions about pinks. I'm one of them, but I actually like it in this situation. Some people are more green people, some people are more yellowy orangey people. Use colours that you like. When you're finished, while it is still wet, I'm going to draw into this with my Stabilo Oil pencil. So this is a water reactive pencil. Again, this is an optional extra, but you can see I've just used really scribbly lines over the whole top, and now I'm going to dry my piece. So the water soluble pencil will obviously react with the wet paint. It will score through it, will reveal some of the collage underneath as well. Now I've just spritzed it with some water to activate that pencil. So what happens is it turns into a really inky line. You get these beautiful wicking from the pencil as well, which just adds another layer of effects to your page. Now I would suggest at this stage, you can see it's still a little bit wet on my page. I would actually dry it off completely before I start putting stamping on it, but it does work. It gives you sort of a watercolory effect. Now I'm just using a mix of background texture stamps. So I've got some dots, I've got some grids, some of these crosses. Anything will work. And you'll notice I've got my 2 pieces of paper together and I'm working over those pages, which gives you a little bit of freedom because you can make sure that you've got the same images, you've got that repetition happening across the pages. But it also makes you not think about what you're doing as much, which is really important when it comes to abstract. Well, there is a thought process behind it. Sometimes we overthink things too much. So it really is, and that's why I like doing the large pages, because I can just do it and then cut it up into the pieces I really like afterwards. So you see already I've just trimmed off the extras, and I've actually turned some of those pages, so they're not sitting the way they were when I first did them. That's also really important when you're doing these sorts of things, is to turn the pages round or turn the pieces round to make sure that you're happy with them. I'm gluing down some black and white focal points on my page. So these are from the ephemera packs from Tim Holtz. Just really strong black and white images which are really neutral against the lovely colours in the background. So with the butterfly, you'll notice, or a moth, I'm not actually putting the entire image on. So for card making, you may want to leave this on so you've got it coming off the edge. I chose to cut it off, so I've only got part of the image on it. Sometimes we get really not worked up, but we want to put everything on because we've obviously got this piece and we really like it. But sometimes cutting it down or cutting a little bit off it helps us frame our work as well. So now I'm going in to find a quote to put on my page, and this is where those Tim Holtz stickers or the Art by Marlene stickers come in really handy. For this, I'm using some quotes from the Dina Wakley stamp sets. Just using my black archival ink again and doing black and white. So I've got that really strong contrast with the background. And I'm just trimming it up. I've got the two quotes, I see you and great things ahead, that I can use on my page. So trim it up to whatever size you like. For sometimes with ones like that, great things ahead, I might trim them up into the individual words and pop them on the page. It really just depends on what looks best for you or what looks best for your composition. I'm now going in with my ink pad and inking the edges. Now I like sort of a really grungy look, so I'm quite happy if it sort of goes a little bit splodgy on top. You may prefer to do that more neatly with a black pen or with ink sponge around it, whatever works for you. Now I'm just gluing it down onto my page. So really, really simple. If you are choosing to do this on a journal, obviously you can do this as a full-size page. You might have you'll have a bigger focal image, or you could cut it up into sections like this and have it on the page in 4 or 5 different parts. So using this square layout really works. So now I'm just going to mount this up onto my card, and I've got a 5x5 card, I think, which I'm going to trim down to fit the piece of paper I've got, and I'm just going to ink up the edges. So you can see me cutting it down to size. The cards that I've got are all sort of random sizes. I've had these cards for quite a while, so they are what they are. Obviously you can make the piece that we were talking about to any size you want. If you were doing this obviously on an A4 card, you could do that and then cut it down to a 4x6 if you wanted to, if that works better for you. I'm choosing to do this on craft because that's what I've got. Obviously you could mount this up on white with a black border on it, look beautiful. I would stick with probably neutral colours, I think, doing this. It's just going to elevate your abstract in the middle a little bit. So I'm just going in with some vintage photo to ink up the edges, going in with a little bit of text stamping as well. I quite enjoy having text on any pieces of work that I have, just to give a little bit of extra detail or interest in the background as well. I struggle with plain cards, that's just me, so if you like that process, you do you, but I like having a little bit of something extra in the background. I also like overlapping colours a lot, so you'll notice I inked with the vintage photo and then I stamped with it, so I'm sort of getting an overlap of that colour. Now I'm going in and mounting my abstract just on some black card, again just to push it out from the background a little bit. So just putting a little bit of glue on, putting a really thin border on, so it's quite close to the edge. Again, using paper trimmer however you choose to do this. I don't measure, as you can see, I just do it by eye. Again, if you like measuring things, get your paper trimmer out and do that. That's perfectly, I understand that. I'm a bit haphazard at times, so I don't mind funny edges or funny cuts. So again, with my next piece, I'm just going in and gluing it down to the edge too. One thing I would suggest, and I think I did this off screen, because it is something I usually do, with the edge of my abstract, I would have hit the edges with either a dark grey or a black marker, just to hide that cut white edge. It just helps everything blend in really nicely. So here is the final piece, and you can see in the background I've actually done exactly the same way. I've done a journal page as well across 2 spreads. I've been able to use a bigger image on it, I've been able to use a bigger quote on it, but I've done exactly the same process, exactly the same colour scheme, so you can see the difference between the two. So I hope you've enjoyed this process. I would challenge you to maybe do a few different backgrounds like that and different colour schemes, cut them up, use them in whichever way you wanted to. And before obviously you put the focal image on, that background in itself would be perfect to go through a die cut machine or something like that to make your card as well. So don't forget to think outside the box. Thanks for watching. Till next time, bye for now.